Well, so I'll kick us in. So we were going to do this last week. We had a little technical difficulty because last week was actually Jeremie's birthday. And if for those who don't know Jeremie, like he's constantly thinking of new ways, new visuals, new tools to help people, right? To give better perspective, to make you healthier, to make you more productive, make you better. And so we had a really interesting conversation. And he does these tools, by the way, these concepts on the fly a lot of the time. He'll just think of something and then go deliver it and introduce it to people. And 9.9 times out of 10, they're like, that was amazing. That was so good. That was so helpful. And so this is one of those tools, and it's about um, inputs, right? Thinking about the inputs in your life. So Jeremy, you want to introduce this new concept of this new tool for us?
Yeah. So the idea is for any of those listening, think about the amount of positivity in your life. Think about who are the people that fill you up and who are the people that drain your tank. And is there a way to actually quantify the positivity index, the life-giving nature of other people, whether they're life-giving or they're not? What is that? What does that look like? And how do you actually rank it so you kind of know, oh my gosh, I am underwater. I'm all of his energy is going because I've got all these vampires taking all of my energy and all the life-giving things out of my life, or I'm full to a certain level. So what I did is I just started playing around with the idea. I took my favorites list on my phone. So everyone has favorites, right? There's my wife at the very top, which is good. I've got my dad, my mom. I've got Kevin, you're on the list. My kids are on the list. I can't figure out how to order them in priority, by the way. For whatever reason, it's not very easy to move them around. And I haven't prioritized them other than my wife being at the very top. But the idea was, and I figured out I have 19 favorites on my list. Now I'm a connector, and some of you might go, I only have 3. Okay. And I get it. I have 19. There might be a 19 favorites there, 19 people. But it's really the people that are in my life, whether they're in our HQ as the roles I have to play, or other businesses I'm a part of, or my kids and family. So what you do is you basically take a list, whether it's that favorites list on your phone, or let's say it's your top 10 people in your life. And it doesn't have to be in priority, just list them. Who are the top 10? And then what you do is you take that group of people, and the highest ranking they can get is 10. It's a pretty easy game. So 10, at 10, they would be the most life-giving person in your life. Okay. So I'm going to do this with I'll just make it up and I'll say my daughter, Addison. Well, how life-giving is Addison? And kind of where is she at? She's young. She's 23 years old. So, she's living in Tulsa. She's trying to the adulting part. But I look at Addison and I go, she could be a 1, which is unbelievably not life-giving, or she could be a 10. But with Addison, she's like Pollyanna. She's one of the nicest, sweetest persons in her life. So we trade Instagram stories, and we trade all these different ideas. Addison, a good solid 8. She would be at a 9. There's some of those adulting moments, but she's at an 8. I look at like my dad. My dad would be at an 8 or a 9, probably a 9. It's very life-giving, very good relationship. So, you take all of those relationships and you subjectively put a number on it. 1 through 10. 10 is the highest. And, if you have 10, then 100 could be the highest number that you could have. So in my case, when I took all 19 and I ranked them between 1 and 10, and then I kind of divided it, I came out at 72% of the people in my life were life-giving and really, really helpful and really good. So 72%, right? So generally, I'm in a good spot. Now, you should have certain people, by the way, that if you're at 100%, you may not be doing. You have people in your life. Let's just put it that way, right? You could be narcissistic in that regard. Or if you are like 42%, everyone in my life is negative, draining, there might be some enabling happening. There might be some protection that's taking place in your life. So it's an indicator of positivity, and how much positivity do you need in your life? So, Kevin, where do you think you are? Where's your number at, or what
Yeah,
would you say about it?
I looked at mine the other day, and I was at a 78. The people that I looked at the people that I talk to the most. So I don't actually use the favorites thing on my phone. I've never actually used it. I don't know. There's no reason. I've just never used it. My wife's in there, and that's it. I don't even know how she ended up. Don't know how she got there, but she probably did it herself.
I mean, she's not a favorite. Did you guys hear
She's
that? I don't know how my wife got
Megan,
on
are
my
you
favorite
listening?
list.
How did she get my favorite list? But no, she's my only favorite, right? She's the favorite. So I consider the 10-ish people that I talk to the most, that get the most of my time, and how do they make me feel? Are they giving me life? Are they? And I really like the point too of how, if you can be too high, right? And you may have a bunch of yes people around you who aren't challenging you, who may not be honest with you, not bringing any critique. That there is an unhealthy too positive could be unhealthy. Obviously, too low is definitely unhealthy. So I was around a 78. Which again, we've talked about the tool, the Peace Index, and we kind of generally rate it. If you're 80 and above, you're in a pretty good spot. 60 to 80, need a little bit of work. A couple changes, you could be in a real good spot. A couple changes, you could go south real quick. Below 60%, you're pretty unhealthy. So I think that kind of scale probably fits here as well.
Yeah, except if you're 95 or above, again, you may have made it where you control your world and no one is in your life, because you gotta.
Yep.
The reality is, when you're in people, there's going to be drama, and I'm helping someone with a marriage issue that's falling apart. I'm helping someone, but those people aren't really life sucking.
That's right. Yeah, but also not life giving.
But it's not life giving right now.
Yep.
So it also shows you how full you are. So think about the idea. Last night, Kevin and I were on an airplane through these crazy storms, and we were trying to make it through. We got diverted to Dallas, and when they come up and they give you the whole spiel about, make sure you put your mask on before you put the mask of someone next to you if you have a small child or what have you. Well, the idea of it is, you can't give what you don't possess. So you don't worry about putting the mask on other people. So you have to be positive in order for there to be an overflow. So the idea would be, if you're 70 to 90 in that range, 70 to 95, then that's a positive life. You've got positive people around you. Then it's easier for you to be positive. But if you're below 70 and maybe below 50 for sure, it's really, really hard to see the future, to have hope. It's really hard for you to give, because you can't give what you don't possess. So take your top 10 list. Again, for those who need a little bit more detail, take your top 10 list, those that you talk to, your favorites on your phone, or those that you talk to the most. Write down a simple score, 1 through 10, 10 being the highest, and add up all of them and see what your number is, and then divide by the number. So 70 divided by 100 is 70%. Yep. So whatever that percentage is, then that's your opportunity. Then you look at your lowest on your list. And this is an interesting one. If you take the lowest of your list, I could say there's probably 3 people on my list that were the lowest, but they weren't that low. They were maybe a 6. It wasn't like a 4. It wasn't toxic. I don't have anyone on my favorites that are toxics, but they're low. Then I'm going, well, one of them's dealing with some health stuff. Okay. Another one has got some drama in their life with their spouse. And another one is just the personality. It's just so different than mine, that that person can kind of be annoying. Okay. So it's just that. So when you look at your lowest, you're like, well, you're not going to just get rid of their relationship, or you could, but most of us wouldn't if they're in their favorites list, because it's hard to get rid of a daughter or a son or or a relative, right? They're in your life forever. So what you do though is you go, so far as it depends on me, what could I do to get them to the next level? Can I call them up? Can I liberate them? What would it look like to bring support and challenge, to fight for their highest possible good, to help become more positive, which in essence leads to your positivity, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what I loved, Kevin and I, we went on this trip, and I had these guys that were either business partners of mine or clients or good friends, and they did a celebration dinner of me, and they basically shared the positive that I've had in our life, and it was unbelievably rewarding. It was really fun, but I look and go, the reason I can be so positive to so many other people is because I have positivity around me coming into
Mm-hmm.
me.
Mm-hmm.
So that group, that favorites group, that top 10 group needs to be life giving in order to help you be life giving to other people. If you're
That's
being
right.
drained and if you're being sucked of all life giving joy and any hope, it's hard to give yourself away to others.
Yeah.
So that's
Well,
the
and
big idea for today.
I love it. And to your point, there are people who are going to be difficult in certain seasons. Doesn't mean toxic, but they're not life giving, right? Somebody who's going through a marriage thing or whatever, and you're having to serve them, to care for them, to lead them through, which is it's a noble thing. You can't do that well if you're at a 40 because everyone else around you is actually really negative and not giving life. But if you're at that 78, 85, because most of the people around you are giving you life and pouring into you in a healthy way, that allows you to pour into people who aren't as healthy in
That's
a
right.
season and not get burnt out on it. I was like, no, I've got my tank is full, so I can pour into them. And so it kind of goes back, the old cliche, like you are the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. It's kind of
Yep.
that thing of what voices are pouring into your life on a consistent basis, and are they building you up or are they holding you back? Because our inputs shape our outputs, and so if you're and I would another maybe twist on this that I'm just now thinking of, like your own voice. You spend a lot of time with you. What
Yeah.
voice are you life giving to yourself, or are you negative to yourself?
How many, well, that is interesting. How many people are you on their favorites list?
Mm-hmm.
And what number would they give you?
That's
Right.
right.
And a lot of times what that is just simply we're into ourselves. We're
Yeah.
into our own world.
Mm-hmm.
One of the guys that was on our trip, it was one of those, like, yeah, he was consumed by himself. So it was
Mm-hmm.
hard for him to really give because he was so fixated on his own world. And I was
Mm-hmm.
trying to encourage him to unplug and just pour in to people. So
Mm-hmm.
that's the idea, is wherever you are, it's like, what number are you on someone else's list? So
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
positivity index is all about being life-giving and or
Mm-hmm.
having life-giving people around you, so that the input that Kevin said, that input is positive input, which enables you to be not distracted, you to be full and healthy, because when you're healthy, you can give what you possess.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. Tracy, any thoughts, any comments, any questions coming in?
Yeah, actually, Dennis says, I'm having an eye-opening moment right now. I think I might not be a life-giving person to those around me. I might need to ask them how they see me. So what
Mm-hmm.
should he do next?
Yeah, the way that you typically do that, Dennis, it's a great thought and question, is you actually go to that person and go, okay, I just had this aha. I listened to this talk by these two yahoos who talked about being a life-giving person, about positivity index. I did this for myself on my list, and I figured out I might not be that positive. Um, so what you do by doing that, what you've done is you've been vulnerable. And so if you said, where am I on your list? Be honest. It might hurt. And then how do I get to another level? What are the things that I'm doing that might be driving you crazy, or might be taking or mitigating or undermining my influence with you? So, but start with what you've learned, and then
Mm-hmm.
start with what your aha was, and then ask them. And because they might be reticent to tell you, oh, no, you're great. Yeah, everything's fine, because they don't want to deal with any drama. Right. So
Mm-hmm.
that's what I would do if it was you, if it was me.
Yeah. And I love the model of that. The idea of you can see the plank in your own eye. You may not be able to see what kind of wood it is, right? But there's a plank there. There's an issue. But to go to someone else, say, "Man, I may not be who I thought I was. Can you help me?" Versus them having to come to you. Hey, man, you're being a real jerk, or you're doing for you to initiate that. There's just so much influence within that. So I love that perspective, Dennis.
That's good. Okay, here's another one, kind of the opposite, which is Mercy saying, I live with the people that are most draining to me. These are two roommates that I've signed a year-long lease with. How do I challenge them?
Oh my goodness. So my daughter's just had this same issue. And so it got to the point is like, so far as it depends on me, that's where you start. So far as it depends on me. Well, you get to a certain point and then you realize there's mental issues, health issues, or there's narcissism, or there's whatever. So you've thoroughly looked at yourself to go, am I causing them to respond or react in a negative way? So that's just secret number one. Always start with yourself. If you truly, truly have gone through it and go, oh, one of them is nuts, the other one has some really crazy, crazy issues. And when I say they're nuts, I mean that in the nicest way. But I mean, they're having some drama in their life and it's causing them to be narcissistic or whatever. And another person, just whatever reason, maybe a personality or a negative. So figure out what it is. Is it the drama because they're having issues with their mom, their relationship, whatever? Can you help them? And by helping them, that changes the attitude. If it's another person who's just truly narcissistic and it's not helpful, then in the case of my daughter, she actually had to move. She moved rooms. And she had to, there was a couple of months that she had to eat, and which meant I had to eat because they were in college and I'm paying for that. So the point would be is like it depends on how much drama and how much it's really affecting you, and are you ready for those relationships to be severed, which is really, really hard. Kevin, what do you think?
Yeah, I think you have to count the cost from both sides, right? What is it going to cost you to stay there? Like from a mental, emotional toll? Like, is it an inconvenience for a season, or is it genuinely unhealthy for you? Like, it's going to have a really detrimental effect. That cost versus the cost of breaking a lease, or and moving out, or finding someone to take over your lease. There's a cost to both sides, and if it's that negative, like if it's really, really, really that bad for you, and it may be, like in the long run, eating that cost is painful, but it's going to lead to more health, right? It'll be more beneficial in the long run. So I think you got to figure out which cost is you want to bear the burden of.
That's good. Here's another one from Anthony on LinkedIn. He says, the last 2 years have really cut down on most people's social interactions. Any suggestions for people who still feel isolated or may encounter Zoom fatigue trying to connect with others?
I think here's what I'd say. We're talking about the top 10 list. If you went through your top 10 list or your favorites list on your phone, go through and ask the question, is there Zoom fatigue? Is there meaning I'm not getting to see them? And it depends on the state you live in. That like any New York, it's going to be different than Florida. So as far as interactions and social interactions. But I think, Anthony, I'd go back through your list of relationships and go, where are they? Pick a number. And then look at the situation. Is it because there's been a lack of social interaction? We're not talking about every relationship in your life. We're talking about your top 10. So, and you could even, I'm making this up on the fly, as Kevin said, but I think through these things as we're talking to go, I talk out loud, and that's where I learned to go, where were they a year ago? If you went back through the list and go, right now they're at a 6. Last year, they were at an 8. Okay, so there's a negative slide, 2 points. They're 2 points down. What was it? Well, oh my gosh, yeah, it's been Zoom, I've only been on FaceTime with them for the last year. So that's it. And certain people don't do Zoom well or phone calls well, and so it feels negative when it might not be. It might just be the situation we've been in. So by looking back and giving a ranking of where it was last year this time, and then asking yourself what's actually happened between that last year and this year with that person specifically, that could be an answer to maybe there's hope that person could go back to an 8.
Excellent. Anything to add there, Kevin?
I just think with Zoom, one, try to make yourself healthy, right? Go for a walk, get off the computer. Like if you're in that position where you've been isolated or whatever, like get outside, go go for walks. That will increase your life-giving index, like for yourself. We put in a practice early on, 15, 16 months ago, where most Zoom calls are all transactional. They're all business related. And so it can be exhausting, where everything's like, there's just a purpose. I'm here to talk about this thing, now get off. Scheduling some Zoom calls, if that's your best option with certain people, just to hang out. Hey man, how's your family? How you doing? We would call that third gear time, but just to have the relationship and make it not about business, not transaction. We had weekly third gear Zoom calls where we couldn't talk about COVID and couldn't talk about business, because there were a few weeks there in Oklahoma where we couldn't see each other, right? So that was our way to just hang out and make it relational. And so I think figuring out little hacks, given certain relationships, and what you can do to make that a little more life-giving.
That's great. Yeah, we talk a lot around here about just making sure those people that you're going to challenge, they know that you're for them. They know you're fighting for their highest possible good. So I think any of these hard conversations, if brought with love and humility, can be very successful and can create some positive change. So, all right. Well, this has been really helpful. Thanks for joining us today, Jeremie and Kevin.
So good to be with you, Tracy and Kevin. Yep. And thanks to everyone.
Yeah, thanks everybody. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next Monday, same time.